Hi everyone, delonewolf here and welcome back to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online, yet again without a Jita local this time. Not sure what the hell is happening there, but yeah, CCP is still trying to fix the chat in the game at the moment, still has some bugs in it. Last week so far has been pretty good for me. I actually played the game a decent amount and I got some exploration done. I did not do anything for Operation Permafrost though. I think if you read up on the feedback there, the limited amount of sites available, and then the fact that there's resets only at downtime, for instance, for the hacking, which was what I was planning to do, well, it just makes it a little bit disappointing and very difficult to access, especially for newer players and alpha clones. So yeah, I just focused on doing something else with people trying to get into permafrost. That just leaves more exploration sites for the rest of us to do. So overall, I still had a pretty good week in EVE Online. And in other news, I just read up that apparently there is some war in Providence as well, and there Providence is actually on the losing side at the moment, so perhaps we'll have new neighbors next to the Tal pretty soon. Be a little bit careful if what you want to do there is experiment with nullsec under a not red don't shoot umbrella of Providence. Those guys are actually engaged at the moment. As always, we'll take a quick look at the New Eden store. These are the holidays, but we don't have a lot of sales to show. We do of course have the fireworks if you want to stock up on those, but I think that generally we get plenty of those in the form of gifts and rewards and drops anyways, so I don't think that I need too many of them. But still, if you want to be ready for New Year's, for instance, you might want to grab some of those. Then there's quite a few Triglavian skins that are up, of course, and then down here I think the biggest series of skins that came out here all of a sudden is of course the Yaul Festival skins. Look at that Oracle, looks pretty good. There's one for the Jackdaw as well. Fixor Navy issue looks pretty decent, but what I really liked down here, look at that, the Arc with that gold and then that black, that looks pretty damn good. Then we also have a Minokawa if you want it. So those are definitely new skins that are pretty unique, and they're all about Christmas, of course, the Yaul Festival. Apparently you can also get a Sisters of Eve bundle for a little bit less. But overall, pretty expensive as well. Look at that, 250 plex and 700 plex for an Yaul Festival. That's more than a month game time. That's like probably around $20 or something like that for a single skin. Quite expensive, but they do look pretty cool, of course. And that's pretty much it in the New Eden store here. I think if you do want these types of skins, well, you'll have to pony up a little bit of money. Next up here, I think we can just basically get started. Of course, as always, we are going to start with some plex and stuff, and that will start at 315. Like that, and let's get started. A little bit of hesitation at the tail end here. Not sure why we have a data point at 3.2 million, but overall, if we go into Jita, we are talking 3.4 million for the sellers, 3.2 million for the buyers. Must be a couple more trades that happened here rather than there at first. If we go to the player-owned trade hubs, it's 3.3 million for the sellers, and the buyers are very close to Jita 4 for around 3.2 million. So we do have an upward trend. Now looking at the 1 year chart here, that was the start of the decline, and here we also have this hesitation. And I also said in the previous discussion videos on bots that Unholy Rage, in my opinion, should have the impact on plexes of lower prices, because I do think that botting activities in general and RMT in general create inflation in the game, create more demand for plex as well, and if that does take a big hit with an action from CCP, I think that's going to put some downward pressure. Another thing to note, of course, is the lovely spike here from August to November, December. This is a natural thing in EVE Online. The summer is usually where there's less activity in the game, thus generally speaking less inflation, less demand for plex and things like that. In the winter then we either normally get a war or we get like a winter expansion that can excite lots of people, and as a result we do tend to have this spike here. So for me personally, if I would want to sell some plex, I'm still pretty rich in ISK at the moment, so I don't think that I want to disturb the balance that I have between how much plex I have and how much cash ISK I have. But if I were to sell, I would sell at this point, I think, or definitely keep a super close eye on it. Perhaps try to see if prices in JITA might go up to towards 3.5 million. It might happen on some more natural inflation, but you can see that the market is starting to hesitate as well. And well, this timed sale here from CCP, of course, makes it a little bit tricky to see that momentum continue. If that had not been here, I feel pretty confident that we would have been in the 3.4 to 3.5 million range at this point, and that we would have had a very pronounced sell opportunity. But the question is, do you think that if we should have been here that we can still get there, or do you think that we're going to start a decline throughout the new year, just like we did last year? That's the real gamble that you are taking. Looking at this entire chart though, right now we are at a 1 year high, especially in JITA. So if you can sell them there, why not try to do that and get your ISK? I think it's not a bad idea. For these skill extractors next, you can see a little bit of upwards momentum at the tail end. That is pretty interesting. Same pattern here as well, of course. January last year, we're coming off of the highs. We are then declining pretty much in a straight line with a couple of hesitations to the summer, and then from summer to winter, we're back on the increased path here. And we are at a 1 year high as well. 370 million for the sellers, 363 for the buyers. That's the same question that you have to ask yourself. Do you expect this pattern to repeat itself, or do you think that that perhaps we're still up for an upswing at the moment? It looks on the skill extractor chart like that might still happen, like we might still get a better sell opportunity a little bit later down the line. Did I just post JITA prices? No. If you look at 370 million for the sellers in player-owned trade hubs, 378 in JITA, it's not that big of a difference. Perhaps something else that I should quickly note here as well, we do have some spikes right here. I think from time to time you can have stuff, especially here in May, that might have been something to do with FanFest, and FanFest will be completely different next year. So I personally, if we start on this downtrend now, I personally do expect a pretty smooth downtrend, which might only be accelerated by the botting actions, but I don't expect too much when it comes to spikes from announcements or anything like that during FanFest. It's going to be on the road. You'll have lots of smaller FanFests, and thus I think that generally any announcements made there will have a little bit less of an impact, a little bit less of visibility than they would on the one big FanFest every year. So as a result as well, I usually keep a close eye on what Plex is doing around a FanFest, and there is usually some movement, right? Stuff like the tournament also can have an impact on Plex prices, but this time personally I'm expecting a much smoother ride down, if that's what Plex is meant to do. Next up, so a little bit less volatility basically because of the new version of FanFest that CCP is trying this year. Next up, we'll take a look at the multiple pilot train certificates. Actually switch those two around. Very strange pattern on this one, of course, starting the year at 1.3 billion. That very quick downwards momentum in April to less than 900 million ISK. But you can see from these volume spikes that all these downtrends are due to CCP sales, except maybe for this one. This one is a little bit strange right here. But now we are back at 1.2 billion ISK. If you manage to grab some at like 900 to 1 billion ISK, I think I always consider those to be buy opportunities. You now have an opportunity to sell them for pretty much 1.2 billion. Buyers are coming in at 1 billion 150 million ISK. So as a result, looking at this chart, this is another high point, and at the tail end here on the 5-day moving average especially, you can see a bit of hesitation to go even higher. So here, this is more an indicator for me that Plex might be reaching its top at this point as well. Next up, we have the injectors. Here are the large scale injectors, also finally cresting, coming from a 1 year high point of more than 830 million ISK, now selling for 821. million, and the buyers are at 805. Bit of a margin opening up. Obviously, demand can't sustain itself at these super high prices, and so a little bit of a pullback is to be expected now. Great time to sell if you bought September, October after that massive downtrend, and very interesting chart in my opinion, comparing that to Plex and comparing that to the multiple pilot training certificates as well. So we know that, well, when Plex and especially the multiple pilot training certificate become very cheap all of a sudden, that means that the skill point farms have very nice margins. They have very cheap ways of creating lots of skill points in the game, but then you can see that increase in price through September, October, November, and then you have that lovely delayed reaction with a very massive increase in price from November here through December. In less than 2 months, we are going from very close to the bottom to the high, from 700 million to 830 million. And well, if the theory holds up, of course, something that might be predictable in the future as well. So if you see that Plex are going down and you see CCP do an action on the multiple pilot training certificates, know that you can expect large skill injectors to also start to take a dive. And then, of course, when all of that turns around, you have a very predictable spike in large skill injectors. Makes for a very, very interesting market dynamic there, in my opinion. Small skill injectors, same thing, but a bit more volatile and a bit more hesitant as well. Went up to 160. You can see some hesitation here during like 10 days or so, and another spike up, and now we're actually pulling back a little bit quicker than the large skill injectors here. Currently selling for 169 million ISK bars at 161. Still a very good trade again if you bought October, September, something like that for 140, and now you're selling for 170 almost. Pretty decent trade to be had right there. And then finally we have the daily alpha injector. That is yet again, that must be another sale. That is pretty damn crazy. Actually at the moment going for less than 40 million ISK. If you want to make that small investment for the medium term, short term of course will need some time to absorb all of that, but they're now selling for less than 40 million ISK. 36 million ISK for the buyers. That is daily alpha injectors at, I think, all-time lows, and definitely at a 1-year low point. Yet again a sale, so massive volumes available on the market. I think if you still want to make that investment because you missed out on the skill injector bottom, you missed out on the Plex bottom, well, this is your chance to actually grab a little bit of these daily alpha injectors at a 1-year low point right now. The comeback, well, it'll take a little bit of time, but I definitely think that this is still an item that will come back, because new players do constantly try the game, they're alpha clones, and then this is one way of them to just get more skills every single day. There is definitely demand for the item. Volumes wise though, you gotta be a little bit careful, but we're still talking probably 500 to 600 trades a day, so don't go completely crazy. Don't all of a sudden buy 100,000 daily alpha injectors. That's not really what you should do, but couple dozen I think should not be a problem. So yeah, very interesting this week here, and very unexpected in my opinion that we have yet another sale, massive volumes in an item related to Plex here, after we already had, look at that, volume increases here, so we must have had a little bit of a sale to drive the price of daily alpha injectors down from their 1-year high point as well. So look at what happens when CCP doesn't do anything to these daily alpha injectors. Constant inflation and increased prices to a 1-year high point of 63 million ISK, downfall to 50, and now a downfall to 40. That definitely looks like a nice opportunity. Let's move on to the minerals at 1345. Like that. As always, we'll start with Tritanium. A little bit of a good news here. Another little jump up from Tritanium after going below 4.5 ISK. Definitely a 1-year low point last week. So a bit of a comeback. They are currently selling for, let's take a quick look at that, 476 still, 469 for the buyers. They have gone up a little bit, but the response is of course what should worry you. Look at the prices from 490 in the last 2 days, pretty much 1 billion units, 1 billion, another one, a couple of 2 billion units, 1.5, another 1.7 coming in at the lowest price. So you do see that there are just massive volumes available on the market, way more supply than demand, and as a result any spike in price will be short-lived. I think that if you absolutely need to sell Tritanium, try to do so right now, but know that you're in competition with lots of other players that have those stocks and that are trying to take advantage of it. I personally have a bit more patience. I think that we will at some point see another really big war, and that will be your better opportunity, I think. But yeah, little opportunity right here in titanium. For pyrite, yeah, slight little uptick after again reaching a 1-year low point of close to 3 ISK. Now selling for 326, buyers at 325, and the bad news is right here. Look at that, 340 to 336 here, a billion, 2 billion, and I mean these are just massive amounts that are keeping the price from ever really going back towards 3.5, 4 ISK or anything like that. So we are stuck with these all-time low prices for pyrite for the foreseeable future. Next up we have Mexalon flat at a 1-year low point. Not very good news. 58 ISK for the sellers, 57.5 ISK for the buyers. Very narrow margin. Volumes here a bit more reasonable. 30 million ISK units, 60 million units, nothing all too crazy, but of course Mexalon was the best high-SIC mineral for most of the year, and now finally it's been a little bit too quiet for too long, and we are definitely trading at low points here as well. Isogen straight down for a whole year from 45 to 15 ISK. That's 1/3 of the price it was a year ago. Trying to basically flatten out here at 15 ISK, so the market does say that that's pretty cheap. 16.17 ISK for the sellers and 15.35 for the buyers. So the market is hesitating to go below 15 ISK at this point. And you can also see that we do have some volume spikes on the downtrends here. So sometimes investors do just grab whatever they can at 15 ISK. Is that a good idea? Well, for a while here they thought the same thing at this 27.5 price mark, and you can see some volume spikes here as well, but that was just broken as well just because of more supply and the current situation. There's so much mining, so much more mining going on in EVE than is needed, that all of these prices are under pressure. Except for Noxium. Noxium is the one that has been able to hold on to its average for the whole year. It's a bad average for Noxium. If you go back a couple of years from before moon mining and before the changes to the Orca and the Rorcal, Noxium was like 1100 ISK or something like that. But that one was definitely pressured quite a lot at some point by CCP rebalancing the mineral compositions of ores. And as a result, that one knew a very massive downtrend all of a sudden and has actually been able to hold on to 300 ISK for the whole year. Not so bad, 313 for the sellers, 305 for the buyers of Noxium. Then we go to even more bad news, of course. Here is Zydrine. If you look at this 1-year chart going from 800 to 400 ISK, halving the price. That's of course moon mining coming into play here, but we have a little bit of a resurgence from 400 ISK and now selling for 492. Buyers coming in at 470. That is not bad. Look at those increased volumes as well. So a slight comeback all of a sudden in Zydrine. Not sure what has triggered this, but it is there. And so if you did buy at 400 ISK, you can now sell at almost 500 ISK. That's a nice little trade and definitely something to keep in mind. For the first time in a very long time, we're actually seeing a 1-month move in a mineral where you could make a trade outside of a war actually as well. I think perhaps there is something that happened in nullsec that caused this, but this is, you know, buy for 400 at the bottom, sell for almost 500. That is not bad. That is some decent ISK that you can make on a trade like that. And then we have Megasite as well. Same picture here. Went down to even worse, 378, but goes back to 580 ISK for the sellers, 536 for the buyers. If I had to gamble on a possible explanation, perhaps somehow, somewhere, someone knows something that we don't, that CCP is planning to do when it comes to mining that is related to Megasite and Zydrine. So definitely another trade, you know, 378 and now selling for 580. That's 200 ISK. That's more than 50% profit in a matter of a month. That is yeah, some nice volatility, but the real question is what is behind it. I think that's the real mystery. If anyone has answers for that are not as tinfoil as mine, which is that someone leaked something somewhere, then yeah, feel free to post those in the comments. I think it's very interesting because if there is a logical in-game explanation for this, then we are finally starting to come in the range where Isogen is finding its bottom, Pirate is finding its bottom. They're terrible bottoms, but at least they're not willing to go beyond that 3 ISK and not willing to go beyond that 15 ISK. Then there is a chance that we can finally start to consider perhaps some small trading in minerals yet again, thanks to stuff like here, and especially Zydran and Megasite might be good candidates then. Finally, we still have Morphite that is also continuing to decline. 1 year low point, chart well below 8,000 ISK at this point, 7,441 for the first buyer, 7,800 for the sellers. This, I think, if you look at this entire chart, is also definitely an investment opportunity. Something that I personally am planning to do at some point. It's related to the Tech 2 market, keep that in mind, but this on even more medium engagements can see a pretty good comeback because, well, people tend to lose, I think, Tech 2 ships a bit more often than they tend to lose super capitals. Alright, moving on to our PI at 2040. Like that. Let's go over these. At the moment we've got the advanced PI materials that I think are going to be in flux at lower than average prices. The reason is we didn't see as big an impact as what we would have liked for the new structures that were released with the winter expansion, and so as a result, yeah, we are all now dependent on CCP yet again to come out with a new set of structures before we'll see any real moves on that. And well, I'm not sure, but we are not reading or seeing anything about the propaganda towers anymore, so perhaps they have been put on the back burner for something else that CCP is working on. Perhaps a 64-bit client is needing more attention than expected. Perhaps they're going for the Citadel skins. We know that that is something that has been put on the radar as well, and well, gotta be honest on that as well. It's a new way to monetize the game, so I think that it might be normal for CCP to try and prioritize that a little bit. So that's the feeling that I'm getting. It's just a feeling, it's definitely not a fact, but I do get the feeling that our propaganda towers might just be delayed a little bit. What might be logical as well is I think that CCP is coming very close to parity with the POS, with the old POS system, and that perhaps they're saying rather than start new lines and get even more structures in the game, let's first make sure that we can rip out the old POS code so that we can make the game better from that perspective before we start cluttering everything with even more structures. So make sure that everything can work without the POS code, and so that they're rather working on the transition from POSes to all Upwell structures, and there's the retiring, the buyback programs, all of that stuff will take some time and attention as well. So it's understandable that CCP might be putting their efforts into something else than a new set of structures at the moment. So that does mean that perhaps we'll get buy opportunities. We can see here for the broadcast notes, for instance, that we are definitely going to a less than average price, close to 2 million. Yeah, 2 million for the sellers and almost 2 million for the buyers. But that also means that for me personally, I'm a little bit hesitant to buy at this point, or definitely to buy a lot of them at this point, because you never know how long it's going to take for a spike due to new structures to come up. Construction blocks actually shooting up a little bit after meandering in the 10 to 11,000 K mark, also a little bit below average, is now back to average, I would say. 11,500 for the sellers and 10,500 for the buyers. Almost, let's say 12,000 is probably the normal average if we look at the first half of the year. So now we're still a touch below average, but we're getting back up there. Consumer electronics are staying below average as well, so everything that's not related to fuels was not doing so hot. As I've said, I think a bit of overproduction and a bit of overscaling from the market, expecting more from the new structures. So that's a general vibe that I'm getting here. 13,500 is still a respectable price. 11,500 for the buyers. If you look at that on the chart though, that is definitely pretty low. So consumer electronics below average. And then we've got coolants tied to fuels. Those are doing a lot better. Look at that, going to 12,000 ISK at this point, even 13,250 for the sellers, 11,000 for the buyers. It's time for me to empty my gas planets again and bring those to the markets. 1 year high point for coolants and a great sell opportunity, of course, well above average. Enriched uranium, after a small dip, is actually coming back as well. Currently trading for 17,500 on a lack of supply, 14,500 for the buyers. Yet another nice sell opportunity. This is PI material that is also related to fuels, and these are doing very well at the moment. Integrity response drones though, advanced PI material tied mostly, definitely tied to structure construction. Look at that, going back below average. 2.5 million should have easily been possible if we look at the first half of the year. Now 2.4 million for the sellers, 2.2 million for the buyers. Mechanical parts for fuels though, after dipping to less than 11,000 ISK, lovely comeback all of a sudden, back up to 12,000 for the sellers, 11,500 for the buyers. Well above average, very close to a 1 year high point as well. 12,000 is the high end of high-end range for selling for sure. So another nice opportunity related to fuels. Then I'm really surprised personally to see all the fuel blocks go down to like 90,000 ISK, which is really cheap. Yeah, it's the situation. Nuclear reactors next, trying to come back a little bit. So if you follow Eve Talk, that I've been trying to sell, to buy some of these. I bought them at like 89. We had buy opportunities last week at 82. And now look at that, back to 103,000 ISK, and the buyers are at 90,000 ISK. So we definitely have a small sell opportunity for people that managed to buy for less than 90k. And we are starting to see a bit more volatility in the nuclear reactors market. That is pretty good. Last spike was up to 110,000 ISK. I personally am going to wait a little bit before pulling the trigger on selling. But it's good to see that there is some volatility and finally a bit of a comeback in the nuclear reactors. Organic mortar applicators, a little bit above average all of a sudden for an advanced PI material. 1.2 million for the sellers and a bit above 1.1 for the buyers, with 1.1 being the regular average. Not by a lot though, so looks quite okay. Robotics, also a little bit of a spike up related to fuels, but quite muted, staying below 100,000 ISK, 99,000 for the sellers, 96 to 97,000 for the buyers. Well, it's still a decent price, but it must also be said, of course, robotics is a specialized PI material, a bit different from coolants and enriched uranium and all of that stuff, which is refined. So that's tier 2, this is tier 3. A bit trickier to make and apparently a bit more stable at the moment. Self-harmonizing power cores, definitely coming close to a 1 year low point. Sellers are at a bit above 2 million, buyers are at a bit above 1.9 million. Superconductors, after a very nice couple of weeks here with some spikes up to 14,000 ISK, now back down to 12,800 ISK at 11,256 for the buyers, about average I would say for superconductors. Definitely a normal and still a decent price, but know that your sell opportunities are over. Test cultures doing really well, staying close to 10,000 ISK at this point. You can see that we could have bought these for 7k not that long ago. 10,000 for the sellers, 9,500 for the buyers. Definitely above average here. And then finally we have wetware mainframes that are, well, a bit below average, but definitely not by much. Again, 2.4 million almost for the sellers and 2.1 million for the buyers. Bit of margin here, so you could buy them pretty cheaply if you can grab them from the buyer. So PI materials still I think pretty close to the same thing as last week, except that, well, we see another breakout for fuel-related PI materials. Those are at 1 year highs, great times to produce and sell these, and most of the others are a bit below average, but pretty stable. And then good news, nuclear reactors was added here because of its volatility, because of its very pronounced margins, where you could say, all right, 90k, time to buy, 110 plus, time to sell. And that was something that came back quite regularly, so it was a very nice item to trade, and it's good to see at least a little bit of a comeback of that volatility after a much more stable and slow moving period here. Next up, our advanced moon materials coming in at 29 minutes. like that. All right, let's start with the carbide stuff. Here are the crystalline carbonites. Still going up and going up above 175 now. 182 for the sellers, 177 for the buyers. So if you bought for 150, I think you can consider, you know, we're definitely 10% plus up. So you can consider a small trade here. But we're definitely still also not at a high point just yet. So you could be patient. You could sell if you bought right on the bottom. You know, it's a wait and see approach as well. Does that have more momentum to go towards 2 on the disc? That's when you get a pretty damn good trade all of a sudden. Of course, 25% increase would be quite nice. Ferrite carbide actually going back down in price. That to me indicates that we gotta be a little bit careful with how long this increase in crystalline carbide can stay. And we are playing with 150 again as well. 154 for the sellers, 139 for the buyers. I would call ferrite carbide in a buy opportunity. You are buying below the entire chart at this point. Next up, we have titanium carbide flat at, well, not the bottom price, but still below average, I would say. 193 for the sellers, 185 for the buyers. So that's too late to be buying, but too early to sell as well, I think. And then we've got tungsten carbide that did move up to 225. And for the second time, currently selling for 240, actually 242. And the buyers coming in at 217. Bit of a margin opening up. Know that you can buy this for around 175. And now you're selling for 242. That is a good trade. So this is, I think, a small sell opportunity. Close to 250. It's definitely above average. So yeah, that is a nice sell opportunity, a trade that you could have made from October, November, now to late December, from around 175 to almost 250. Not bad. Very nice little trade here in tungsten carbide. My ticker, I haven't really checked on that last week, so I don't have any of that available. Unfortunate, but yeah, there you go. Tungsten carbide in a sell opportunity. And this is what's a little bit weird here. Tungsten carbide above average, and then we have the titanium carbide pretty flat at a less than average price, and then the ferrite ones are actually back down to a buy opportunity. So we've got a buy opportunity, sell opportunity, and a couple of in-betweens here in what would be presumably pretty similar items, except of course that if I'm not mistaken, they are tied to the types of empire space or in some way regional, so there are obviously differences there. Next up, the metamaterials. Here are the photonic metamaterials diving back down quite sharply, heading straight through 17.5k, now selling for 16,600. Buyers are coming in at 15,800. Very close to that low point. Personally, I would wait with this momentum to see if buyers can go even lower. But we need to basically cut everything above 15k, and that's where you have an absolute certain buy opportunity. If that happens, that would be my move. But you could consider on this volatile decrease in price to 15,800, that's a buy opportunities here as well. You're definitely well below average. Plasmonic metamaterials also under pressure, not close to the 1-year low point yet, but if we go a couple more months with the same range, then that might be possible. 19,000 for the sellers and 18,600 for the buyers. Well, it is definitely moving below average for the last 8 months or so, actually close to a low point for the last 8 months or so. So perhaps you could make a move on that as well. Non-linear metamaterials also a bit under pressure, but staying above even the previous lows in the last couple of months. So selling for 26,000, buyers at 25,000. That's a bit of a no, but know that all metamaterials seem to be under pressure. We just have terahertz left that is doing something different again as well. Went up to 25,000 and is basically trying to hold on to that price with obvious bottoms here at 20,000 possible. So currently 25,600. If you still have some of that lying around that you bought at 20k, I think you can still sell that. But overall here, a bit of pressure starting to be seen in the meta materials. And then we have the other advanced moon materials. Here are the fermionic condensates, definitely trading below average. Currently selling for 90,000. Buyers are at 85,000 pretty much. That's around here on the chart. Perhaps a buy opportunity. Know that we have been lower before, but considering the last 8 months or so, again, this is definitely at the low end. Next up, we have the ferrogels, stable in between, so I would say that that's a no for an investment. 45,000 for the sellers. Fullerites are, well, after a little bit of a comeback from a 1-year low point here at 875 up to 1100 and now on its way back down. So unfortunately you're a bit late to still sell. Still selling at more than 1,000 ISK. Buyers coming in at 980, but this is obviously not where you want to be when it comes to actively trading Fullerites right now. Hypersynaptic fibers continuing to be under pressure. Where are the buyers at compared to 11,000 ISK? 11,700. All right, bit of margin opening up here again as well. 12,400 for the sellers. Bit of pressure. It's up to you to decide. A buy order here, could be good, but if you look at the entire chart, you know that 10,000 ISK is a possibility as well, and then we're definitely still a bit early. Nano transmitters, again flat in between at 5,000 ISK. That's not, I think, where we want to put our ISK. Phenolic composites after going down here to 2,100 ISK. Would love to see buyers below 2,000, but that's not going to happen. Is on its way back up, 2,450. All of a sudden for the sellers, buyers still at 2,000, 270, up a little bit as well. So we are probably forming a bottom. The real question is how volatile is this? How much higher can phenolic composites get? I don't think too high, considering the relative stability of most of the others and Nasdaq at the moment. And then we've got ceramic fibers that after reaching a 1-year low point of 400 and then a nice little sell opportunity of, let's say, 550 or something like that here, has to give back some ground. Buyers are at 467 though, so that's still too high to go back in on ceramic fibers. Next up, the Tech2 ships coming in at 3605. All right, let's go over these. Here is the Aries under pressure a little bit as well, currently trading on average for apparently 28.5 million, 28.5 for the sellers, 27.6 for the buyers. Look at the 552 here, that's quite a lot. Buy opportunity, we're definitely buying very close to the bottom of the chart here, so you could try it, but it is interceptors. I'm not really sure how that meta is still holding up at the moment, but the Aries is definitely under pressure, trading below average. The Basilisk coming back under pressure a little bit as well, but definitely not at the low point just yet. Selling for 264, buyers are at 238. Yeah, you have this trade that happened here. You could have bought these for probably 220, something like that, and then a sell at 290. And now, of course, we get a little bit of a comeback after an increase in price for over a month, for around a month. Next up, the Cerberus, same thing here, right? Last week, I think we had the sell opportunity, coming back to 300 million ISK, having to give back some ground here, 266 for the sellers, 250 for the buyers, but a low point, no, we're definitely not there yet. The Crow, I think last week I said that this one could be in a buy order territory. I think you could still have bought these for like 28 million or something like that. Now already selling for 33.5, buyers are not moving though. 27.1 for the buyer, so be a little bit careful here. If you did manage to buy them for close to 27 million, you can perhaps try to get a quick sale of a couple of these in, but know that the buyers are still lying in wait for this to come back down. The Guardian, next up here, bottom 200 million, here a top at 250, so that was a nice little trade. Again, too much too quickly, so we are settling back in the middle between those two. 250 still for the sellers, 220 for the buyers. It's a little bit tricky to say what you should do here. The Heretic, after a lovely spike, 200 million, back to its average, so very difficult. 73.5 million for the sellers and 66 for the buyers. Very sudden and very violent spike, something that I don't think was predictable in any way. In my opinion, here difficult to trade in this one unless we see less than 60 million on the buyers. The Hound, I did grab a couple of those, of course. Stealth bombers, I do like these. Now they are stable at these bottom prices. Sellers coming in at 28 million, buyers at 26 million though. And if I look at my ticker, I bought hounds for 25.2, so I should be below the current market action. So if you were looking to buy, you're probably a little bit late. And now what we need is Bomber's Bar to be engaged, and then we're off to the races, I hope. Next up here we have the Ishtar, just slowly going back to an average price here, definitely not at the bottom. 265 for the sellers, 245 for the buyers. The Manticore actually going down towards 30 million again as well. 31 for the sellers, 28.7 for the buyers. Do I have Manticores? I managed to buy them for 27.9. So same thing here, a little bit too late for the actual buy opportunity, but they are staying low at the moment. We've got the Munin stable at an average price of 250. I don't think I would want to trade on this one. 257 for the sellers, 231 for one buyer, and then 218. Get rid of this guy. And we are talking, well, not even the bottom on the 1 year perspective, but definitely a less than average price. Perhaps if you can buy below 220, potential sell easily 260. I think you do have a small trade potentially in the Munin. Nemesis, after a small sell opportunity above 30 million, where I did not try to sell my Nemesis that I bought for 24.5, back under pressure, back to that low end of the trade at the moment. 26 million for the sellers and 25.8 for the buyers, so still not as good as what I grabbed mine at. The Oneros is flat to a little bit down to less than 200 million ISK. The worry of the Oneros is the volumes. They're just too low to really say that you should be trading in that one too much. Purifier back under pressure as well. Did I buy these? Nope. I was too late for that opportunity. Here currently selling for 30 million, buyers at 27, so that's definitely not the bottom price either. Saber flat at 70 million here. Tricky again, I think. Lovely volumes, 250 a day is pretty good. We're definitely below average as well. Buyers coming in at 65 million. Let's look at that on, actually, Saber buy opportunity. Actually, I was wrong. The chart looks pretty stable, set at 70, so it's probably going to be tricky to grab any of those at these buy prices, but try to stay below this chart, which is at like 67.8. Try to get as close as possible to 65 million, and I do think that you have a good Saber purchase potential here. 75, 80, 85 million is definitely possible, and it's an interdictor. It's something that does get used and then primaried quite a lot in big fights, but you are dependent on the big fights, of course, for that to happen. So that would be actually my buy tip for this week. If you'd look at buying some Tech 2 ships as an investment, look at the Saber. Scimitar flat at 230. We know that 200 million is possible. Buyers at 220, that's a no. And then finally we get the Stiletto. Another one all of a sudden showing up, breaking through everything to a 1 year low point. 27 on average, 27 for the sellers, 26 less than that for the buyers. A slight buy opportunity for the a buy opportunity for the Stiletto as well. To be honest, if I had to gamble, I would actually try to grab some Sabers rather than Stilettos at the moment, because I'm not sure what's happening with interceptors right now. So that's the Tech 2 ships. Let's move on to the Tech 3 ships. 4230. Like that. And we'll see if we finally start to see some moves here because of the eviction of Hard Knocks. Here Confessors definitely up in price after a little bit of down pressure in the last couple of weeks. So back to more than 40 million, 44 for the sellers, 35.6 for the buyers. We do see a bit more volumes here, 42, 28, 30, but nothing that cannot be absorbed by the market. Volume increase on an increased price should mean increased amount all of a sudden for the Confessor. The Hecate also up in price, heading for 45 million this time, so 41.5 for the sellers actually, and then 39.5 for the buyers. Volumes a bit more than the Confessor, but we're not seeing hundreds of them on the market, so this does not look like oversupply or anything like that. Just healthy trading. Apparently 40 to 45 million is possible for the destroyers at the moment. Definitely not a bottom price or anything like that. If you still have some of those that you bought really cheaply, try to sell them at the right time. but it's gonna be yeah, wait for a chart like this, for instance, for the Jackdaw to go back down substantially all of a sudden. 36.5 for the sellers, 35 million for the buyers. If you still want an investment here, look at this chart. We're well below average. That's where you could try to buy some cheap Jackdaws right now. Look also at what's happening with the Hecate and the Confessor. They're going to try to produce these and drop off on the Jackdaw if they have the opportunity, which should mean potentially a comeback of that price. And then finally we have the Zwepel that is flat at 35 million, but you can see that it's less popular. So this is actually its average price at 38 million for the sellers, at 34 million for the buyers. Availability is even lower than all the others here because it's not so popular. And now we have the cruisers. Let's take a look at the Legion. Flattening out at 180. So after a bit of a comeback in the last couple of months, we are now stabilizing a bit. 176 for the sellers, 166 for the buyers. And look at the volumes. This is, you know, not a lot. This is absorbable, pretty easily absorbable by the market. Loki, same picture, I think. Yeah, pretty flat at the high end. So basically the Legion, you could say that we are above average, but stabilizing there. The Loki, we are, I think, also above average. Once we get to more than 200 million, we are talking expensive Lokis and going back down just a little bit. 237 for the sellers, 225 for the buyers. And again, look at the volumes. This is nothing crazy. Then we've got the Proteus, same thing, average 150. Maybe a touch above that, and we are a little bit above that as well. 174 for the sellers, 157 for the buyers, and look at the volumes. Nothing too crazy, so we are, I think, set for a pretty stable tech tree market. Oh, that's kind of weird because I do have a spike in my ticker for the Tengu, but on the chart it's flat at 180. 184 for the sellers, 162 for the buyers, and again availability nothing too crazy. So the tech tree market, I think, is stabilizing at, for the cruisers, an above average price. For the destroyers as well, except for the Zwepel, which is just not as popular. And then we get the Jackdaw that's actually under pressure all of a sudden. That is perhaps your one small buy opportunity right now in the tech tree market. I'm not sure it's gonna last very long. So if you do want to get in on that, grab your Jackdaws right now from the buy orders, or try to at least. I think that's as close to 35 million as possible is definitely pretty good. Considering everything else here, I think that supply of Jackdaws should basically drop off and should find its way in Confessor, Hecate, and thus an increase in price here, maybe stabilization in the others is in the cards. I don't think it's going to be a massive trade, but who knows. Jackdaw definitely very popular in Nullsec as well when it comes to big fights and big fleets, so perhaps there is a real buy opportunity there, especially on, again, Nullsec action. But then I gotta be honest, of course, much more pronounced in the Stiletto and the Saber that you have these opportunities there as well. And then for the extra product this week at 47 minutes, like that, I got a request for Elite Drone AI, so we are going to take a look at that. Elite Drone AI, which is this one. Ooh, that's indeed a massive crash. Look at that, going for 7 million on average for the entire year. Then volumes are increasing quite massively and now crashing down to 5 million ISK. 5.2 million for the sellers, 4.9 million for the buyers. You're buying these for less than 5 million ISK. We've not been close to that anywhere in the last year or so. And so this is, looking at this chart, this is a buy opportunity. Now the real question is, what's the reason for that? So if you have any knowledge on that, I couldn't tell you. Is it more supply from somewhere? Definitely post that in the comments. Or is it because people are expecting like a nerf to the Rorqual? I think these are used to create the excavator drones. And so are people expecting something in line of a CCP intervention as to why this price is dropping off? If that's not really the case, then I think that this is a very pronounced buy opportunity. A lovely crash here. Very, very good suggestion to take a look at Elite Drone AI right now. this is a chart that you want to see if you're looking to invest in something. It's 5 million a piece as well, so you can definitely scale up your 5 million a piece with 10,000 on average being traded. This is definitely something where you can decide on how big an investment you want to make. And if there is a comeback, you can definitely take a nice profit of that one. So yeah, Elite Drone AI crashing down in 2 months from 7 million to 5 million is 1 year low point right now. Buyers below 5 million. Very, very interesting suggestion. Very interesting chart all of a sudden. And well, I can't tell you what's exactly behind that. If anyone has that information, definitely post that in the comments, and then people can decide for themselves whether or not this is a trade that they want to get in on. Perhaps I'll take a quick look at my ticker bar as well, but nothing new here. Just haven't had the time to make more investments. So if you look at my construction blocks that I'm trying to grab for less than 10,000 ISK, that's just not gonna happen, I don't think. Did I even remove the buy order? It's possible. Then I should probably remove construction blocks here as well. I'll have to take a look at that. Maybe it's even just that it's gone after 3 months or something like that. So crystalline carbonites bought for 146, currently selling for 182. Definitely a small trade that I could make right there. Hounds bought for, I think we saw all of these. I bought them well below average and even below the buy prices of now. Nuclear reactors bought at 87.5k is currently selling for 103. Potentially I could sell that here for a small trade, but knowing where we come from just a month ago, I think I'll wait on a price closer to 110. Then this Saber trying to buy at... Oh, I actually tried to buy Sabers at 64.9. All right, I'd completely forgotten about that. So I'm just trying to buy one because if that does trigger, then that's a very good buy, of course. But people are obviously competing at the 65 million range. I still think that you could indeed try. If I would change that to, let's say, 65.9, I'm pretty sure that I would grab it. But this is where I would love to be able to grab a Saber at. And then the Stront, that's, you know, the I also make mistake item. And that's really it. So nothing new to report there either. Anyways, that's gonna make it for this Eve Talk then, guys. Thank you very much for watching. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.